Hey everyone, and welcome back for another deep dive. It's patch note day for Overwatch 2. Our goal for this deep dive is really to look at how these changes are going to impact you as a player.
Right.
Not just like what the numbers are, but what it's actually going to feel like when you're in the game.
Absolutely. These aren't just like minor number tweaks. Like these could really shake up the meta, change how a lot of these heroes play.
Yeah, for sure. So let's start with the tanks.
Okay.
Doomfist is getting some love.
Doomfist buffs. That's where it starts getting a little scary.
Yeah, so what's interesting here is that the developers are specifically saying they're not trying to make him more powerful, just more consistent. They've increased the wall slam angle on his rocket punch, so you should see fewer of those like infuriating almost slams.
Yeah, I've definitely raged quit a few times after missing a rocket punch by like an inch. More consistent slams means more reliable crowd control. And if you combine that with the lower ultimate cost for Meteor Strike, he's gonna be a real menace. Think about it. More consistent slams for setup, more frequent ults to punish grouped up enemies. It's gonna be interesting to see how players adapt to this new, more reliable Doomfist. Now, contrast that with Junkrat Queen.
Okay.
She's on the receiving end of some pretty substantial nerfs.
Yeah, the smaller projectile size on her jagged blade really caught my eye.
It's not going to be as easy to land those throws anymore.
Yeah.
It's going to require more precision, which is a pretty big deal for Junkrat Queen.
Right.
Remember those wound stacks from Jagged Blade are directly tied to her survivability through Adrenaline Rush.
Right.
So if she's landing fewer of those throws, she's going to be a lot less tanky.
Yeah.
In those chaotic team fights, which opens up opportunities for counterplay. Maybe more skilled players will learn to bait it out or use movement abilities to dodge it more effectively.
I can see that happening. It's going to be a lot riskier to just blindly chuck Jagged Blade into a crowd.
Yeah.
You'll have to pick your moments more carefully. And with the Adrenaline Rush nerf, those wound stacks are going to be even more crucial.
And you know what? That might actually make her more interesting to play. You'll have to think more strategically about positioning, timing, and who to target. No more just blindly chucking it into a crowd and hoping for the best.
Yeah, I'm actually really curious to see how this impacts her pick rate in competitive play.
Totally.
Maybe this opens up space for other tanks to shine, who rely less on landing that one key ability.
That's a great point. And speaking of other tanks, let's talk about Mauga.
Okay. What's the deal with those overrun buffs?
So they've significantly reduced the cooldown and increased his movement speed during overrun, so now he can engage and disengage much more quickly.
So imagine this.
Yeah.
Mauga charges and disrupts the enemy team, and then uses his buffed overrun to either escape or chase down a vulnerable target. Suddenly, he's a much more dynamic and threatening presence on the battlefield. Okay, tanks are looking spicy.
Yeah.
Let's move on to damage heroes.
Okay.
What jumped out at you?
Well, the changes to Hanzo are particularly interesting. They seem to be pushing him towards a more versatile playstyle.
I saw that faster draw time on Stormbow.
Right.
Does that mean he's not just a long-range sniper anymore?
He really looks that way. With the faster draw and recovery, he can be much more effective at closer ranges.
Okay.
You might even see Hanzo players flanking and taking more aggressive positions.
That's gonna catch a lot of people off guard.
And don't forget about the Dragon Strike changes. This is a huge buff.
You're telling me now it can damage buildables like turrets and mines?
It basically turns Dragon Strike into a battlefield control ultimate. Think about it. You're pushing the payload on King's Row, and the enemy has a Torbjorn turret locked down on that final point. Now with this change, you don't necessarily need to wipe the enemy team. A well-timed Dragon Strike can obliterate that turret, opening a path for your team to secure the win.
It feels like Hanzo players just got a massive toolbox upgrade with these changes.
They'll have to be a lot more strategic and think about how they can use Dragon Strike to create opportunities for their team.
So speaking of strategic, what's the deal with Junkrat's concussion? Mine cooldown increase.
Well, it seems like the developers are trying to tone down his chaotic playstyle a bit. That longer cooldown will limit his mobility and make those instant burst damage combos less frequent.
So less spam and pray, more think before you boom.
Exactly. It'll be interesting to see if this actually makes him stronger in the long run. Sometimes limitations can actually breed creativity. It forces you to think outside the box and find new ways to be effective. He'll be less reliant on those random concussion mine plays and might be forced to utilize his traps and grenades more strategically for area denial. What do you think?
I think you might be right. And maybe, just maybe, this will make Junkrat a little less frustrating to play against. Those random concussion mine kills could be pretty tilting sometimes.
I can't disagree with that. It's all about finding that balance between making a hero fun and engaging to play, while also ensuring they're not overly frustrating for the opposing team.
All right, let's move on to another damage hero who got some adjustments. Reaper.
Okay.
He got a lifesteal nerf.
Yeah.
Which is interesting considering he just got buffed recently.
Right, he got that health increase. And the Shadow Step changes not too long ago. This lifesteal reduction feels like a rebalancing act, making sure he doesn't become too dominant in close quarters fights. This nerf will force Reaper players to be a bit more careful and strategic with their engagements. They can't just rely on lifesteal to keep them alive anymore.
So he's still a powerhouse in brawls,
Right.
but not quite the unkillable Wraith he was before.
Exactly. They're aiming for that sweet spot,
Yeah.
where he's a threat to be reckoned with, but not completely overpowering.
And last but not least in the damage category, Tracer got a juicy recall cooldown reduction.
Ah, yes, this is a big one for Tracer players. That extra recall will make her even more slippery and elusive.
Trying to hit a Tracer is hard enough as it is.
Right. Good luck trying to land a sleep dart on her now.
I'm already picturing Tracer players blinking in and out of fights, harassing the backline, and escaping with ease. It's going to be a wild ride for both Tracer players and their opponents.
This change will allow for even more aggressive plays and escapes. It's definitely going to add another layer of chaos and unpredictability to the game, which is what makes Tracer such a fun and engaging hero to play.
All right, we've covered tanks and damage. Let's move on to the healers. What's going on in the support category?
We're seeing a mix of buffs and rebalancing,
Okay.
aimed at addressing the recent changes to support health.
Right, everyone went down to 225 HP,
Yeah.
which made them a lot more vulnerable.
Exactly. And it looks like the developers are making adjustments to compensate for that vulnerability, starting with Anna.
She got a damage and healing increase on her biotic rifle.
Yeah.
That seems pretty substantial.
It definitely is. It might not seem like much at first glance, but those extra few points of damage and healing can make a big difference, especially in those crucial moments.
So you're thinking we might see more clutch, 3-shot kills and faster healing
Yeah,
for allies in critical situations.
absolutely. And players who are already skilled at landing those shots will be even more deadly with this change.
And on the other side of the spectrum, we have Juno
Yeah.
with an increased ultimate cost. Is this a nerf to her overall power?
Not necessarily. It seems more like a way to prevent Orbital Ray from being used too frequently.
Okay.
It was such a powerful ultimate that it could sometimes feel oppressive.
So they're trying to make it more of a strategic tool that you use at crucial moments rather than just spamming it every chance you get.
Exactly. It encourages Juno players to think more carefully about the timing and placement of their ultimate, which could actually make it more impactful in the long run.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
What about Kiriko? I saw she got a few buffs.
Her changes feel like a direct response to that overall support health reduction. They're giving her more tools to survive and thrive in a more dangerous environment.
What kind of tools are we talking about?
Well, they've sped up her kunai recovery time, so she can put out slightly more damage. And they've also reduced the cooldowns on both Swift Step and Protection Suzu.
So she'll be more agile,
Yeah.
able to reposition quickly,
Yeah.
and get her protection Suzu out more often to save teammates.
Right.
That's going to make a big difference in her survivability, especially against flankers like Tracer. It's not just about healing anymore, it's about making plays, outsmarting your opponents, and using your kit to its full potential.
Exactly. It seems like they're trying to keep her competitive and give her more of a fighting chance in this new, slightly more fragile environment for supports.
All right, so Ana got a little more power, Juno's ultimate is more strategic, and Kiriko's got more tools to stay alive.
Right.
What else is happening in the support world?
Lifeweaver is getting some love too.
Okay.
And let me tell you, Lifeweaver players are probably breathing a sigh of relief right now.
Oh, I saw those changes. The increased healing on Life Grip and the longer over health duration on Tree of Life.
That life grip healing increase is going to make a huge difference in his ability to reliably save allies. No more pulling someone to safety only to have them instantly melted by the enemy team.
Right. It was so frustrating to use Life Grip thinking you were saving someone, and then they just get blown up anyway.
Totally.
This makes it much more of a clutch save ability.
Exactly. And the longer over health duration on Tree of Life just adds to its overall value,
Yeah.
making it a much more potent defensive and healing tool.
So Lifeweaver's looking a lot more viable in this patch.
Yeah.
What about Moira?
They've increased the amount of self-healing she gets from Biotic Grasp, which is a welcome change after that general support health reduction.
So she'll be able to sustain herself better in those close quarters engagements and stay alive longer to pump out healing and damage.
Precisely. It's a subtle change, but it could make a significant difference in her overall survivability.
So it seems like across all roles, these changes are encouraging more strategic thinking, more creative playmaking, and a deeper understanding of the game.
Absolutely. It's not just about picking your favorite hero and spamming abilities anymore. It's about understanding the nuances of each hero, adapting to the situation, and working together as a team to achieve victory.
It's about pushing the boundaries of what's possible and constantly evolving as a player. As we wrap up this deep dive, what's the one key takeaway that you want our listeners to remember?
Embrace the change. Don't be afraid to experiment with new heroes, new strategies, and new ways of thinking about the game. Overwatch 2 is constantly evolving, and the only way to truly master it is to evolve along with it.
I love that. And remember, this is just the beginning of the conversation. We want to hear your thoughts. What are you most excited about? What strategies are you brewing up? Head over to our social media channels and let us know.
Yeah, let's talk about it.
We're all in this together, constantly learning, adapting, and pushing the limits of what's possible in Overwatch 2. Until next time, keep those gaming skills sharp. And remember, knowledge is power.
Especially in Overwatch.
Especially in the ever-evolving world of Overwatch 2.